Hello everybody, in this video we are going to be drawing the Saiyan trio which invaded Earth in the beginning of Z. They comprise of Nappa, Raditz, and Vegeta, an absolute classic lineup from early Dragon Ball. However, we're going to be drawing 3 figures in this one, so guys, if you enjoy the video and value the extra time I spent drawing this, go ahead and show your support by 1. Hitting the like button and commenting, subscribing to the channel if you're not, and if you want, follow my socials down below, they're in the description. For materials, I'm going to keep it bare bones, using only a mechanical pencil and a kneaded eraser. I'm drawing on 11 by 17 Bristol paper because I'm not planning on inking this. The finished pencils are going to be a little bit more detailed than I normally leave them. This is mainly due to the fact I feel comfortable enough with a pen to not need all of the detail in the piece before I start inking. It should be noted that while I'm drawing the skeleton, I'm pressing very lightly with my pencil because I don't want the lines of the skeleton to show up in the final piece. Not to mention the fact that kneaded erasers tend to be a little bit worse at removing graphite off the page as compared to like standard rubber erasers. While I'm drawing the skeletons, I'm keeping in mind all of the builds of each of the characters. So Raditz's build is closer to standard superhero proportions, while Nappa is very broad and very tall, and Vegeta is slightly smaller and definitely not as much definition in this part of Z as some of the other characters. I'm using a combination of cylinders and circles to place my limbs and joints. A strategy to find the elbow is to place the hand first and then draw a line from it to the shoulder and then another perpendicular line from that line about halfway, and then using a little ball at the end of that to figure out where your elbow will be. One important tip I have for drawing super bulky characters such as Nappa is to raise the traps of the shoulder and widen the neck. This will make it way more convincing that the character is buff rather than just large, as opposed to the character just being scaled up of a normal figure. While constructing the anatomy of the characters, I'm trying to keep in mind the art style that Toriyama uses in Dragon Ball, while still adding some of my own tastes and habits. A noticeable characteristic of the style is that he tends to round out muscles and make them a little bit more organic than I tend to do it. It's usually something I try to avoid when I'm drawing forms, to be honest with you guys, because I find it less interesting. However, so the characters stay recognizable, I will be doing it a little bit, just toning it down a slight bit. There may still be a little bit of style added to it, just because I'm doing it subconsciously. While constructing the battle armor, I'm making sure to use more than one line to represent the chunks in the armor. This will make it appear more three-dimensional and will leave a nice place for me to shade in later in the drawing. As I'm drawing the armor, I'm making sure I look at his art style and capture the quirks and features that he uses when drawing arms. While I may not be able to find perfect reference for the angles I'm doing right now, I have basic enough knowledge on how to rotate forms that I can just go based off what I have. After constructing the forearm, I'm adding the gauntlets or the wrist guards to the character. Until now, I've never realized that Nappets and Radditz actually have like the exact same battle armor design, while Vegeta has his own. This is most likely to symbolize that Vegeta is, the leader of the group and has a lot more plot relevance than the other two. Alternatively, though, it could just be bad character design, or particularly lazy character design. It's a little bit of a known fact that the character designs get reused in the show. Particularly hairstyles are seen on multiple characters throughout the show at different times. Even down to their shoes, the uniforms are exactly the same. I think one of the reasons I didn't notice until now was the fact that the characters are shaded slightly different in the anime, and as well as the fact that Nappa's armor got trashed very quickly into the fight, and he eventually took it off. Now, I don't find legs to be particularly convincing when the muscles are super rounded, so I'm going to have to sharpen the form up just a little bit. I'm still going to use the same placements for the muscles as the original design, but the profile may change slightly. And honestly, legs are probably the thing I struggled with the most while learning how to draw, and I'm still not the greatest at them. It's just, I used to find it super hard to connect the lower torso with the legs. I found that my characters came off balance or janky usually. But as I adapted this kind of more angular method for constructing the legs, I found that they were a lot more convincing than previously. Specifically on male forms, I struggle a lot with legs. Female forms, it's kind of easy because the characters are just normally rounded. One thing I feel a lot more comfortable doing than I did when I first started drawing is connecting the head with the shoulders. Basically, you just gotta throw in the neck and some of the muscles there. Just practice it a little and you'll eventually get it. It's not very difficult at all. You just need to look at some anatomy for like trap, shoulders, chest, the whole like frontal area. If you get some anatomy and practice a little, it should be good. Now that we're moving on to Nappa, I made sure to widen his neck and raise his shoulders just a bit, as I mentioned during the construction of the skeleton. On the battle armor, I'm also going to hide the white divider between the pecs just a little because the form and size of the chest is going to cover it a little and less of the white area will be shown. I'm also going to widen this stomach portion of the armor just to show that it's stretched out a bit further. One thing to note is that Nappa's face is a lot more structured than the rest of the characters in Dragon Ball. He has very like noticeable cheekbones in the figure, as well as he has a different nose than you normally see on characters. It's kind of like sorted down like a bean, you know? I actually enjoy kind of drawing these super bulky figures a lot of the times. It's nice to mix it up from your, traditional structure. Characters like Bane, Hulk, they're really fun to draw just because you can go crazy with the proportions like this. And they kind of have a similar build to Nappa, although I will say Nappa isn't quite as bulky as some of these other characters. Now I feel like I messed up a little on this arm, so I'm just gonna fix this off camera. But nothing at this point in the drawing is super final. This is not even the final sketch, guys. I'm probably gonna erase all of this before we get done. And while you guys may not be able to see it as well on camera when I actually do end up erasing this, because I'm using a kneaded eraser, the lines aren't going to go away completely, so I still will have a good guide of where the lines are. And that way, when I do the final lines of the characters, I can put down very confident strokes without worrying about whether something is misplaced or not, because I can still see the form underneath. Now that we're on to Vegeta, you're going to notice that he's very much on a straightforward view, so I'm just going to lay out this little cross on the face. However, his body is turned slightly, so I'm not going to bother with laying out perfect proportions for the rest of him, because it's going to be turned slightly towards the right. And I know, guys, the faces are a little off right now, just because I'm sketching them down. I'm gonna end up erasing the whole faces. Why would I spend all that time, making sure the faces are perfect? I just want to know where stuff goes and have a basic guide for how I'm gonna draw it in the future. A lot of the times I find when I'm inking over faces, if I go very much in detail, it's hard to replicate it a second time just with the ink. So I'm applying the same concept here of making it slightly looser than, I would want in the final drawing, just so that when I do the final drawing, I don't feel like I'm losing out on what I had in the sketch phase, because guys, the sketch phase for these phases is a little off. I'll admit it. I'll admit it. Now for the clothing on Vegeta, I'm making sure it's a lot more looser fitting. In different parts of Dragon Ball, he wears different tightly fitting clothings. But in the Saiyan saga, the blue part of his outfit is very loose. It doesn't really stretch out, isn't very form fitting. If you guys want to see me do any more Dragon Ball art or some other characters or specific fan arts, comment down below and I'll make sure to get a video out for whatever has the most reception down below. If there isn't a choice, I just go off what I think you guys will like. The plan for next week's upload is to do Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm a little bit excited to do it. I like the show, I like the character, it's all great. Now, I started to shade in some of the hair, but then I realized all of this is going to get erased either way, so I'm not going to worry too much about keeping the hair in. Now I'm just going in with my kneaded eraser, lightening everything up. You'll probably see a little bit of it still on camera. I'm not going too hard with the erasing because I know that when I put the hard lines down next to it, your eyes will kind of just blend it all together with the white background, so you won't really notice it. Even me, when I'm looking at the page right now, it won't be noticeable in the final piece. Now we're into the good part. This is where we got everything laid out, and we can just go with the final lines, making sure they're confident strokes. I don't want them to be too sketchy for this. I'm also fading out some of the hard forms when they merge into the skin. You'll see I do a little bit of hatching, and that's mainly because, not everything is sharp. Sometimes things round out as they go into your arm and under the skin further. After I finish this arm, I'm going into the legs and getting the final lines down for that. There actually isn't too much of a change from the sketch phase in the leg. I find that I didn't actually go all that loose here, so I can just kind of clean up the form a bit, and then we'll be good for the final drawing. You know, legs seem so simple when you're just like looking at it from a glance, but there is a lot of different intertwining parts in the leg, especially around the calves and the knee area. I find that for the thighs, especially as you get higher, you can kind of fade it out, at least until you get to the hips. Once you get to the hips, you'll probably want to add a little bit more definition. Recently, I feel like I've kind of made it a little bit further when drawing clothes. I feel like I'm a lot better at forms, especially recently. I'm doing this thing where I kind of interlock these folds. I'm using V folds right here because it's bent, it's kind of tight. It's a glove. It's not going to be super loose fitting, right? All I have to do now is just detail out the form, to be honest with you guys. I'm gonna do the boots. The boots they're a little bit looser than I'd like, but it's not too hard to draw this, especially when you have reference. The designs are very simple in this show. Nothing too crazy that could throw you off if you're not prepared. Like, you don't even have to worry about laces all that much with these characters. Specifically Dragon Ball characters, they have very simplified shoes, nothing too hard for you to draw. Although, guys, I'm pretty good at drawing shoes. I remember when I was a very young kid, I used to spend a lot of time just like drawing shoes. Maybe some of that time would have been better spent drawing like clothes or figures, but at least I could draw some Jordans now. So. And all that's left is just for me to, light these forms. Guys, if you like the video, you know what to do. Show your support. I'll see you next week, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.